Hey, hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you're all doing really well out there, wherever you might be in the world. And a warm welcome to this first episode in a line of many that I choose to call the Great Albums of 1984. This is something that I've been planning to do for months really, but you know, work, life and all of that comes in between. There's just not enough hours in the day to do all the things that I'm planning to do on this channel. But better late than never, right? So late in the year of 2024, I want to celebrate 1984 in another way by listing my favorite albums from that year. I've been celebrating 1984 throughout the months here in 2024 because it's been 40 years since that wonderful musical year of 1984. And what great singles we got from that year. What great albums we got and some new artists, all of it. It was such a great year, 1984 for music, in my opinion. So that's why I'm celebrating it. And I do that mainly through my retrospectives for each month, where I look back, what did I listen to for those respective months as a 13-year-old growing up in Sweden? We got most of our new music from radio programs like Tracks or Poporama. So that's what I've been doing in those retrospectives. So if you're curious, go and have a look at those ones here on my channel. But like I said, this is a new one where I want to highlight the albums as well, because in retrospectives it's all about the singles. And there were so many great albums released in 1984. And I also want to stress, this is my list, this is my opinion of the greatest albums of 1984. I know you might have another opinion, I do appreciate that, but don't come at me just because I choose that one or this one or whatever. No, put down your own list in the comments and let's have a discussion around the greatest albums of 1984. And to kick things off with this first episode, what better place to start than with the wonderful Kim Wilde and the album from 1984, Teases Dares. Yes, this is a great album that kicked things off for me. It was a stepping stone for me into the world of Kim Wilde's music, really. Of course, I've been listening to Kim Wilde before, you know, singles like Cambodia, certainly Kids in America and all of that. I even had the album that came before this one in 1983, Catch As Catch Can, on cassette. But to be honest, I didn't listen much to it. There was a couple of songs that I really thought was good, like Dancing in the Dark was one of my favorites on that one. But overall, it wasn't one of my favorite albums. But this one, woo! But it all started not with that album really. It started out in October of 1984 when she released this one. The second time, the first single from the new upcoming album then, because the album itself was released in November. So the month before we got the second time. So before we go into the album, which is the focus here of course, I just need to talk a bit about this one. It was her first records signed to MCA, the record label. Before that, on her first 3 albums, she was signed to RAK Records, or as I call them, Rock Records. I'm not sure how to pronounce that really. But yeah, so with her previous album, there was a bit of lack of hits, nothing that really hit anywhere in the world, not charting really well. So, new signing to MCA, they said, like so many other record companies, when they want to rejuvenate someone, let's get you a new look. Because Kim Wilde, for her first 3 albums, was really the girl next door. The pop rock girl next door, if you want. But for this one, they went in a bit of another direction here. So this is very akin of something from Mad Max, perhaps, a post-apocalyptic setting. We weren't used to see Kim Wilde like this. And certainly not lyric-wise as well, but the record company has nothing to do with the lyrics in this one. Because it's edgier than ever. Back in the day, in 1984, the lyrics just they flew right over my head, because not having English as my first language. Yeah, I was just chanting along with the chorus, probably like "Go for it," yeah, but never took any notice about the lyrics because I couldn't really understand them, to be honest. But over the years, when I've been listening to this one, I always wondered this: is it about sex or is it about a relationship? Taking it for the second time, you broke up, but let's try it for a second time. But that's always seemed a bit far-fetched to me. So when I was preparing for this episode, I just had to look up some interviews that Kim Wilde did in 1984, leading up to this single or after the single was released. And sure enough, she does confirm, yeah, it is pretty X-rated. It's about sex. So my suspicions were confirmed around this one, and it's a great one. We never heard Kim singing about sex before, certainly relationships, and she does confirm that in some of the interviews as well, saying she's a bit embarrassed because she never really talks about sex or sings about them in her songs, or even in interviews she never talks about relationships and things like that. So it was a new thing, a new dimension, a new sexier Kim Wilde, if you want. And there are some brilliant lyrics on this one. So if we pull out the inner sleeve for this album, Teases Dares, you get all the lyrics. So I'm just going to read you the first opening one here for the second time. Don't want to know about your vacations in this cheap motel. Don't want to know about your sea green curtains. Yeah, that's one of my favorite lines, actually. And then further on we have, don't want to hear about the time and how it's getting late. How can you stop when I could go for hours? Yeah, so yeah, very interesting. New dimension of Kim Wilde. But what a great track it is. So we're going to come back to the styling of her in a bit here, but I just want to say what a great synth pop dance track this is. We never heard anything like this before from Kim Wilde, so it was very, very fresh. But yeah, the style. Kim wasn't too fond of this. I think she was okay with it being illustrated like this on this single. But when it came to the album itself, they actually used the same picture here. Yeah. She wasn't fond at all of this style they choose for the album cover at all. She even said in an interview that when she saw the draft for this one, she went ballistic, basically, and went up to the record company and said, what is this? We have to change it. It doesn't reflect the music that's on this album. And they said, okay, if you want to change it, we have to just postpone the album for 3 months. So that was basically extortion at that point. So they just went with it. But if they want to go with this one, I would have to say go for this one instead. It's the same shot, but they zoomed in on her face, had a blue tint on it. This would have been such a better front cover for this one than this is. So I do agree with the Kim, and it doesn't reflect the music that's within it. Probably reflects this song better the second time. Yeah, so we're going to talk more about the second time in a while here, because we're going to go through the songs here on this album. And for these greatest albums of 1984, I'm not going to do a deep analysis on each and every track here, just the ones that really stands out to me, because I want these to be shorter episodes, really. So yeah, let's kick things off here with side one, that has The Touch. This one down here, that happened to be her second single. A really, really great one, and in the same vein as the second time as well. Very synth poppy, dancey track. So yeah, really good album opener there. And by the way, just like that one, I'm going to talk more about the singles as we go on with chart positionings and things like that, but after we've gone through the album here. Then we have Is It Over, another great song that follows up The Touch. And then we have Suburbs of Moscow, one of the standout tracks in my opinion on this album. And after that we have a track called Fit In. And this is where I'm going to stop. One of the rare stops in this listing. And it's because this is the first song that Kim wrote all on her own. Because usually, most of the songs were penned by her brother, Ricky Wilde, and sometimes her father, Marty Wilde, as well, and produced and all of that. But in this case, with Fit In, it was all Kim. So good on her, because it's a great, great song where the lyrics is all about her not really fitting in. And I'm saying her because she's singing in first person here. And I do think it actually reflects on her feelings at the time. She was 24 when she recorded this one, by the way, so we have to keep that in mind. It's all about the pressure, perhaps from family, from friends, that, oh, you're getting older now, shouldn't you settle down, have a husband, some kids, a car, and a video. She does mention a video in this one. That was important in 1984. All of those things. And you move into a nice area. We know a nice area that you can move to. And she just say, I don't want that. I love this life that I'm living at the moment. And keep nagging. Stop nagging me. You keep nagging me. Stop nagging me. And all that. So yeah, I think it really reflects her own feelings in this one. And yeah, just a great, great song. I really love the arrangements of it. There's a lot of synths going on here, of course, because it's 1984, right? More synths than we were used to hear on the previous Kim Wilde albums. But yeah, it's all gels together very well. And then we have the closing track on side A, which is Rage to Love. This one behind me, which became the third single, but not until 1985. But more on that a bit later, like I said. On to side 2 here, we got The Second Time. Yeah, the first single that we just talked about. I think this is brilliant, the way they did the track order for this album, opening up with The Touch, the one dance pop single here, and then on the second side they open up with The Second Time, because it could be so easy for them to just bunch them together in the beginning of the album as album openers, but they spread them out here. So yeah, it's very clever. And yeah, more on that one later because it's a single. Next track, the second one on the B-side, is called Blade Runner. And it's, of course, hinting on the movie of the same name from 1982, Blade Runner. There's even some samples in it from that said movie. And the lyrics in this one is very interesting. She sings from the perspective of the replicant. So if you've ever seen Blade Runner, the replicants are basically the robots, the artificial intelligence that the Blade Runners are hunting down. So she's singing from that perspective, and it's a very atmospheric, very moody track, and I just love it. Really, really good. Then we have Janine after that one, another one about a girl that's having some difficulties at home, perhaps with her friends, just having a difficult time overall. And this is a song just to say there are better days coming. But yeah, a very emotional song there from Kim Wilde. Then we go on to the next track, which is Shangri-La. And this is the second song that was penned solely by Kim Wilde. And a great, great one about a person looking for Shangri-La, that paradise, that flawless place that I think most of us would like to live in. A really, really good track there by Kim Wilde as a solo effort as well, when it comes to both writing and singing it. The Thought It Was Goodbye is the last track on this album. It rounds things off, and a nice slow song about a breakup, a coming together for a second time. No pun intended. Or yeah. So overall, it's a really good balanced record between a couple of mid-tempo songs, slow songs, and then you have these really good pop songs interjected in between. And I'm of course talking about The Second Time and The Touch. And overall, this album was produced, or I would say co-produced, with by Kim Wilde, her brother Ricky Wilde, and Marty Wilde. So it's a family affair for certain, this one. And if I didn't say it before, but I think I did, this is the first album on MCA. But I think I mentioned that one with the second time. But also with, because I was talking about the lyrics in a sleeve that we got with this one. There's also something really nice with this one, and I would love that for every single record that was ever released. Because you got the lyrics here, but on the bottom we have who played what. And when it comes to synthesizers, because I love my synthesizers, right? They actually listed the particular synthesizers on these ones, and they had of the time the newfangled technology, right? They had the Yamaha DX7, the Roland Jupiter 8, just a wonderful one, and the Synclavia 2 top of line sampler synthesizer out there. Yeah, I just love that. They done that with every single track here, so you can actually see exactly what was used on the different tracks. And it is a very unique soundscape that they created with this album. And that leads me into the singles that I promised to talk more about. The second time, for example, it's got a wonderful slap bass as the pulsing bass line throughout this track, and some wonderful synth brass going on there as well. I just love this one. And the single had a unique B-side, a non-album track, that is, Lovers on a Beach. And if you got the 12-inch, you of course got the extended versions of both the second time and Lovers on the Beach. Two great tracks. And another note on the second time, when it was released in the US, it was called Go For It, which makes sense, because back then in 1984, even me and my friends, when referring to this one, we always said, you know that track Go For It with Kim Wilde? Oh yeah, that one. Yeah, it was Go For It, because she says that over and over again. Go for it, right? Yeah, so that's it. The Americans were right. Yeah, so great one. Love the production around that one. The same goes for The Touch, in the same vein. I love the synth orchestration, if you want, on this one. Just a brilliant track. And it's got Shangri-La as the B-side on this 12-inch, both The Touch and Shangri-La in their extended format. Really good ones as well. So yeah. And then we had Rage to Love as well as the third single. And this one wasn't released until 1985, but still from the album. And this one is a far cry from these ones. It's completely different. This is more what we used to hear Kim Wilde on her previous albums. More pop rock, hints of rockabilly as well, because for this one they had a guy called Dave Edmunds coming in to mix the single track for Rage to Love, and he worked with the Stray Cats before. And if you know Stray Cats, they have, you know, the upright bass and doing all the rock tropes that you can think of. So there is a hint of rockabilly in this one, and it's, like I said, it's more what we were used to hear from Kim Wilde on her previous albums. And this one also got a B-side, an exclusive B-side called Putty in Your Hands, which is a cover, and I wrote it down here because it's by a group I never heard of before, the Shirelles, or just Shirelles, which was an American girl group from the 60s. And they did this one, and I had to listen to the original, of course, because I have to judge how did Kim Wilde fare when it came to covering this one, and she did a great job as usual, I think. I love them both, very different flavors, of course. This one being very synth heavy, with the influence of rockabilly. It's a really great mixture that Dave Edmunds made on this track, the singles mix for this one. Really, really good work. So those are the three singles, and they all got videos for them as well, which was all the rage in the 80s. Not so much today, perhaps, but in the 80s it was a big, big thing when you saw these on the telly. And starting with the second time, it's not the same outfit that she was wearing in the video. This one is more muted, black. In the video, she had pastel colored suit on, which looks absolutely ridiculous. And in some interviews that Kim made over the years in regards to this video, she said she absolutely hated it. It's probably meant to be set in a post-apocalyptic setting, like, you know, Mad Max, where she fights a mummy-like guy in concrete gladiator ring or whatever. Really, really silly, interjected with some other photos with Kim Wilde, of course. Then you have The Touch, another video, and I remember at the time I thought that was really funny. It's like a Cinderella story, basically. Kim Wilde walks around in a very messy home, singing this wonderful song, The Touch, and then a fairy godmother appears and magically makes things come into the right place. But wherever Kim walks by, it becomes messy again. It's just chaos everywhere, and yeah, really weird video. And according to Kim as well, and neither of these videos were any of her favorites. She wasn't really pleased with them. But back in the day, I thought both were really great. So when I was say that this one is a bit cheesy and a bit naff, that's me to 2024. Tobias talking. But back in 1984, I thought both these videos were great fun, and yeah, just great. A video that I never saw from Kim Wilde was Rage to Love, but there was a promotional video released for Rage to Love as well, which is basically a live performances where she wears this coat, which, by the way, is her father's old teddy coat, I think it was called. You know, the teddy boys back in the 60s wore these kinds of jackets. So she wore that one just to honor the song, because it's a bit rockabilly influenced and all that. Like I said, yeah, so there was videos for all of them. But how did they fare in the charts? Well, the first single, the second time, or Go For It, had peak positioning in Sweden at number 11. And that's not the selling charts, because I tried to find the selling charts for that one, but for some reason I couldn't find it. So I'll go what I've been talking about in my 1984 retrospectives, which is the track charts over time, and it did peak at number 11 there. It was fairly popular. And then in Belgium, it peaked at number 15, for example. In the UK, 29. The US Billboard Hot Dance chart, whatever, 31 it peaked on in the US. And in Germany, I have a really good taste in music, peaked at number 9. And in Switzerland, it peaked at number 7. So it fared really well in Europe, outside the UK, I would say. It wasn't too popular in the UK. And the same goes for The Touch. Belgium peaked at number 20, Germany 29, Netherlands 34, UK 56, and in Sweden, I'm proud to say, it peaked at number 3 and stayed for 6 weeks. It's good on you there, Sweden. I'm really, really proud. But the thing is, with The Touch in Sweden, because we were always a bit behind when it came to the releases of music in Sweden from other countries. This one was released in November, late November 1984. But it wasn't really going up the charts in Sweden until January of 1985. So the track's positioning that I'm mentioning, peak position of 3 and staying for 6 weeks, that's from 1985. And the same goes for Rage to Love, because it wasn't released until 1985. And I'm just going to mention one chart positioning here, and that's UK, because it peaked at number 19 and stayed for 8 weeks. So among these 3 singles, this one did the best in the UK. The others were more popular in the rest of Europe. Yeah. And so the UK listening public preferred the old Kim Wilde, so to speak. She's back to her pop rock roots, so to speak. But the rest of Europe really embraced the futuristic pop that we could hear from The Second Time and The Touch. So that's really interesting. Yeah, so for the album as a whole, when it comes to the charts, because that's actually the focus here, of course, the Teases and Dares, it did peak in Sweden in the selling charts at number 35 and stayed for 10 weeks. In the UK, peaked at number 66, not too good, and only stayed for 2 weeks. No, not good at all. The US Billboard Hot 100 peaked at number 84, stayed for 10 weeks. So it's at least good. It stayed for 10 weeks, but it was pretty low on the charts there. Germany, once again, good taste in music, peaked at number 22, stayed for 23 weeks. Really, really good. And Switzerland peaked at number 10, stayed for 9 weeks. So once again, the album as a whole did better outside UK and US. The rest of Europe really embraced Kim Wilde at this point. Yeah, so to conclude this album, my final thoughts, if you want. Very interesting album. We got the dance tracks in the form of The Touch and The Second Time, of course. But then the rest of the tracks are a really nice blend, but it all gels together really well because of the production, of course, and the sounds that were being used. So even a track like Rage to Love, which has a hint of rockabilly, it feels like it fits in with all the rest of the tracks. And another interesting thing I found about listening back to this album, because it's been a while since I listened back to the album, is the lyrics of the different songs. It's all about, nearly all of them are about people seeking something better or waiting for something to change. It's all about the changes, really. So both musically and lyrically, it's a very interesting album, I think. So if you never heard this album, I urge you to give it a shot. Especially if you like Kim Wilde. How can you miss this one? Well, go and listen to it. Yeah, so those are my thoughts around this. What did you think about this album? Have you heard it? Is it one of your favorite? Or it might be something else by Kim Wilde you want to bring up? Something that I forgot to mention here, because there's so much when it comes to talking about an album, and I couldn't just fit it all in here. I probably forgot something. And perhaps you want to, like I said before, write down some of your favorite albums from 1984, not just by Kim Wilde. Anything goes. Your favorites from 1984, let's get that going down in the comments. And yeah, please be constructive. So just don't say, oh, this is crap. Elaborate a bit if you want. That would be nice. Yes, but that's it. This coming week, I'm going to have my second episode where we're going to induct the next album of 1984 in my greatest albums of 1984 Hall of Fame, as it is now. Yeah, but until then, you all take care of yourself, and as usual, adieu.
Don't wanna know about your secret curtains.